I believe the year was 1986. My friend Dan, for his birthday, his mom surprised him with an Apple computer, and I think it was an Apple IIc or maybe an Apple IIe. Either way, he was super excited. It was totally loaded at the time. God knows how much money it cost, but he was super excited. And I just remember him running around his house and be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe she got me this computer for my birthday." And I'm just kind of sitting there like, what's the big deal? At the time, the big thing for me was Nintendo. So computing for me would not come together for another decade. So it would be literally a whole 10 years before I would actually say, you know what, maybe having a computer isn't such a bad thing. But at the time, all I cared about was playing Super Mario Brothers or any other game that was out on the Nintendo Entertainment System platform. Computers to me were for work, not for gaming or anything else. I didn't know anything about them really. I remember them making a big deal out of bringing Apple computers to my elementary school, which was in 1981. And I remember them making a big deal out of that. But I just didn't get it really. And I just didn't take it seriously. Anyway, 1996, my dad got a Sony Vaio computer, and it was a big deal. And I remember that Sony Vaio desktop computer cost somewhere in the ballpark of $3,700 in 1996. That was a lot of money to spend on a computer. So it wasn't mine. It was my dad's. He bought it for the house. He was doing work and everything with it, and he didn't want anyone to touch it half the time. But anyway, it sparked my interest in computers, and it was also the dawn of the internet and getting online. And it was my introduction to the 56K modem. For me, I was like, wow, really? I can get online and talk to anyone anywhere in the world? It was a big deal to me. A couple more years would go by, and at the time I was really big on writing. So I had these hardback journals and I would write everything in them. And at the time I was on the road touring with a band, and I wrote everything in those hardback journals, like everything that was going on in my life. Anyway, I was writing a lot. And a close friend of mine worked for a big company. I guess I can say this now, but it was Bell South, which was absorbed by AT&T, Singular, and then AT&T. Anyway, a lot of these big companies, still to this day, I have friends who work for some of these big corporations, and from time to time, they clear out all their computers. They give all their employees these computers, mostly laptops, and they clear them out, and they clear them out for dirt cheap. So he got me a Dell Latitude CP, I believe it was, and he got me this computer, and I think I paid him like $100 for it. It was definitely 1999. So in 1999, I got this Dell Latitude laptop from him. And I quickly realized that this was the way I needed to be going. Penmanship died at the hands of modern day technology, because from the moment I realized how much faster I could type, once I started taking typing seriously and getting my ASDF JKL semi hand positioning right, and I started really pouring out my ideas and typing them out, it changed everything for me. And I became obsessed, even further obsessed with documentation and knowing that things were going digital. MP3s were right on the horizon. So I remember, as a matter of fact, that there was a software that I used to use a lot called Winamp on that Dell Latitude CP. And I was starting to get music from Napster through a friend of mine who was doing it, because I was kind of scared to use it, actually. I started running into problems. Let's just put it that way. I started running into problems with that computer, and it wasn't from getting on the internet. I just started having issues with it. And a lot of my issues were connected to Windows 98. After, I guess it was about 3 years or so, I had had just about enough of Windows 98, and even Windows 2000, Windows NT, none of that was doing very well. And Windows XP was looking like more the same. So I started looking into getting a Mac. I'd been hearing about it, and some of my friends were like, you know what? You are not a PC guy. You are a Mac guy. You should have a Mac. And at the time, Apple had those colorful PCs, desktop, CRT monitor computers, and I wasn't really interested in that. But what did interest me was they call it, some people refer to it as the lampshade or the sunflower Mac, but that one really caught my eye. And once I saw that, I was like, man, I have got to get a Mac. This is it. So what I did is I put in an order 22 years ago. So April of 2002, I ordered my first 15-inch G4 700 Macintosh computer. It was an iMac. And I completely fell in love with this computer. So much that the following year, I purchased the first of the titanium, actually, I'm sorry, it wasn't a titanium, PowerBook G4. I didn't even make it out of the store with that PowerBook G4 before it started giving me issues. I immediately turned around and went back to the counter and told the guy that I was having issues with it. At the same time that I bought that computer, I also got two 30 gigabyte iPods. The other one was for my girlfriend at the time. There was something going on with this computer. This PowerBook G4 would not retain any information. Like I would put everything up, set everything in there, and it would just literally, a few seconds would go by and it would wipe everything. The guys looked at it and they determined that it wasn't me, that it wasn't user error. It really was the computer. There was some kind of a problem with it. At the time, this computer cost me a little over $2,000. And they went back and got their $2,500 model. This was in 2003, okay? They went back and they got their $2,500 model and they upgraded me to that model for free. They didn't charge me anything extra. This is how Apple used to be when back in the day. They were really big on customer service. I need to back up and tell you that that first Mac that I ever owned, that I bought, I had to buy it from Micro Center. I had to get on a waiting list at Micro Center because Apple did not have the Apple Store yet, at least not in Georgia. They did not have Apple stores in Georgia. You had to go to an authorized Apple reseller or dealer and order your Apple computer there. And Micro Center was the place to order your Mac because they had a phenomenal, at the time, a phenomenal Mac Center that is almost, it's pretty much non-existent now because they've just gone all in on PCs over there. Anyway, I get this new computer. It works pretty well for a while, but I guess probably about a year after ownership, I started having issues with it again. I took it in and it turned out that the logic board was bad in it. And then something else went bad on that same computer. I took it back to Apple again. I had Apple Care on it. Out of this one and the iMac, my mid 2011 iMac, which you guys, I have other videos about that computer. Those are the only Macs that I've had Apple Care on, and those two Macs have given me the most trouble. So here's what happened. After all that, those guys took that computer back from me. I have emails to prove most of this stuff. A lot of it I've had to dig for. Some of my friends, they just didn't believe me. They thought I was joking with them or playing a prank on them. And I said, I don't know who they spoke to, if it was Steve Jobs, like his instructions or what. But they said, wipe the computer, put it back in the original box, and take it to the Apple store or ship it to us, and we will send you a brand new MacBook Pro. It was a 2006 MacBook Pro. Apple had just switched over to Intel. I get this computer and I absolutely fell in love with it. It was amazing. I ended up taking it apart and I did a video that I was going to post to YouTube way back in the day, and I never did it because I was being too self-conscious and I didn't post that video. But I opened that computer up and I put a larger 500 gigabyte hard drive in it, I think. So I upgraded the drive and I really got into opening up my Apple computers and looking inside of them, including the original, well, not the third gen iPod that I had. I opened that up and replaced the battery in that. It still works today. I couldn't find it for this video because I needed to get on with it and get this done. But either way, I still have a lot of this stuff with me. Let's fast forward from that time, and I believe that was probably somewhere around 2008 that I did that upgrade. I started to get tired of putting all of my energy into toting around a MacBook Pro. They were pretty heavy. And even though this isn't much lighter, this MacBook Pro that I have behind me, I have an M2 MacBook Pro. I got tired of messing with it and I decided, hey, you know what? Let me give this iPad thing a try. So for the second time, I stood in line in an Apple store. This goes for all technology. It's always best to wait for the second revision of any product, usually. But I'm going to get to that in a minute because I know there's going to be an argument about me getting this new iPad Pro for a product. It took me about 4.5 hours in line to get this iPhone 3G. I waited in line for that first iPad for about 30 minutes because no one believed in that thing until they saw it. Once people saw the iPad in action, it went crazy. People went nuts and they wanted to buy this thing. They couldn't make enough of them. It blew up. Now, you can fact check me on that if you want, but as far as I know, I remember that first iPad was in pretty high demand and they couldn't make them fast enough to sell them. It was a hit and it changed my life because finally I had something that I felt like it was made for me. I was just so ecstatic to get this computer or this device. It is a computer, but more on that later. So, anyway, several Apple products later, I finally ended up settling on a MacBook Air that I felt was right for me. This was in June of 2013. This would be my main computer after getting an iMac, which gave me a lot of trouble as well. A mid 2011 27-inch iMac. Like I said, you guys can look here. I've got videos on it. This mid 2013 MacBook Air, 13-inch MacBook Air, became my main computer. It was my go-to computer for 7 years. I did everything I could to get every little bit I could out of it. That is something that really changed in me somewhere around the year 2013 or 2014. I started buying Apple products and trying my best to get as much mileage as I could, much usage as I could out of that product. So, for example, until buying this iPhone 15 Pro Max, the last time I bought a brand new iPhone on its release was when I bought the iPhone 6 Plus, which was in September of 2014. So the year is 2024 now. Definitely 9 years I waited to buy a brand new phone. Other than that, I was buying secondhand phones or getting hand-me-down phones. You know, sometimes clients would actually, a client gave me one phone one time, an iPhone 3GS. But after that, I just said, you know what? I can get more mileage out of these phones than people are giving them credit for. So I did that for a while. And then I started to crave an iPad again, but they just weren't quite right until this one here. This is the iPad M4, iPad 256 gigabyte, 11-inch model. I don't need any more than this. And here's where I get to the point after rambling all this time and telling you guys the history. I think a lot of people have the wrong idea of what the iPad is supposed to be. So let me please remind you of what the iPad really is. The iPad is not here to replace your notebook. It never will. No matter what you do, if you're looking for laptop functionality, you need to get a MacBook Air or Pro or whatever it may be. You need to get an actual laptop computer because they created something. Steve Jobs and that team at Apple, when they released this iPad or the first iPad, they created something that we didn't realize we needed. And that was a tablet that is more or less a larger version of the iPhone. And this is why no one took it seriously when it was first released. They're like, it's just a giant iPhone. And that's not to be argued. That's what it is to me. So while I look at the Plus model iPhones and the Max models, as I look at them as being more like iPad mini minis, I see the iPad as a triple XL iPhone. It is just portable enough, and I will tell you why I don't really care for the 13-inch. I like it when I hold it in my hand and I look at it. Of course, it's nice to have more screen real estate, but this is perfect. This is where extra screen real estate meets portability. That is what is so special about the iPad. Okay, so the 11-inch iPad Pro is the sweet spot. And the number one thing that does it for me with this iPad is the display. There has never been a better Apple display. I can tell you right now that the display on this iPad, this 11-inch Pro iPad, including my iPhone 15 Pro Max, are easier on my eyes in my old age than the 16-inch MacBook Pro. I had a 14-inch MacBook Pro. I stepped up to a 16-inch because the 13-inch was bugging my eyes. Like after looking at it for a while and doing work and doing other stuff, and I would look away, my vision would be so blurry. I don't wear contacts, I don't have glasses. I do wear readers, but I don't have prescription glasses. It just seems like before the iPhone 15 was released and this iPad Pro came out, I had a certain amount of time that I could look at the screen before my eyes would completely become useless to me for the rest of the day. And that was really disheartening because I didn't want to get glasses. I mean, I know that eventually, I'm going to have to get those glasses and I'm looking into it. I've had my eyes checked a couple times. I'm going to get glasses. But it's nice to know that I can look at these two devices and I don't have to like say, oh gosh, in 10, 15 minutes, I better stop looking at this because I won't be able to see anything else once I look away. That's not happening. I had this thing, now it's only been a little over 24 hours once again, but I stared at this thing all day and all night yesterday. I can't get enough of it. I can't take my hands off of it. I can't take my eyes off of it. I absolutely love it. It's perfect for me. I have the perfect TomTalk sling that I'll put a link to that's perfect for this iPad. Slides right in. This is what you need. 13 inches for me. I'm going to tell you why the 13-inch iPad is not for me, because it's not as portable. Because once again, I want portability. iPad mini is a little too small and it doesn't have the display that this has. This OLED display is what you want. So here is my final point, and I'm going to close this out. And once again, I'm going to remind you guys, if you have any questions, comments, please leave them below. I would love to chat with you guys about this. I would love to know when you guys got started with your Mac journey. Mine began 22 years ago. I would love to know what you guys think about these new iPads, if you're interested in getting one, or if you think that, if you disagree with me, if you think that the iPad should bump the laptop out and take over as your laptop solution, let me know. I will do a follow-up video to this video because right now I still have the keyboard to this and I haven't taken it out of the box yet. I haven't felt the need to take it out of the box. That's another point, because this is getting everything done for me. Everything. I'm able to look at this iPad and do my work, everything I need to do just from this iPad without the case. The case adds what feels like 2 pounds of weight to this thing too, by the way. But I still have it and I'm going to do another video about it. I've used enough Apple products over the years to know that this feeling that I'm getting from this iPad is not going to fade anytime soon. The honeymoon is going to go on for a while with this thing. And I just think right now it's the perfect spot. I think that if you look at it as what it is, which it's ultimately at the end of the day, it's a tablet. It is a tablet. It is an extra large iPhone, if you want to call it that. That's fine. But this right here has a place in Apple's ecosystem of products. And now we're at USB-C with this one. Started fresh with it. I didn't move anything over. I'm done using Migration Assistant for anything. I'm not looking for something to bump my laptop. If I want a laptop, I'll just go and use my M1 MacBook Air, or I'll use this 16-inch M2 MacBook Pro if I really want to deal with the laptop. But I'm going to tell you right now that the display on this computer is far more pleasant to look at. Even with extra screen real estate, this one still beats them if they don't have this OLED. It's the OLED that makes it so great. And the brightness too. It's twice the brightness almost of the old 11-inch. I think that was 600 nits. This is 1000 nits. So it's a big difference. You can really, really see the difference. Even without seeing this, when I was in the store and I was looking at those M2s, I looked at those and I was like, no, this is too dim. And as soon as I saw this and I checked the brightness on, I was like, wow, this is super bright. Even right now, I only have it just a little bit over halfway on the brightness, and it's plenty of brightness for me. All right, once again, I'm going to close out here. Thank you guys for watching. If you got anything out of this video, I'd very much appreciate you doing what you know you already can do. I'm not going to insult your intelligence. Thank you very much, and I'll have another video out to you soon.